The number of businesses which have closed down in South Africa continue to rise as a result of mainly the tough economic environment. The July data from Stats SA shows year-on-year basis that 183 businesses were liquidated in July this year compared to 147 in July last year. A young entrepreneur, Mintiro Ngwenyama, shared her story with camera operator Liabo and Liabo Setho about the trauma she endured when her business was struggling until it was forced to close shop. This is her story.
This is SME on Point. My name is Liabo Setho. Good afternoon. The number of businesses which have closed down in South Africa due to the continuous rise of a tough economic environment has seen businesses go under. The July data from Stats SA shows that on a year-on-year basis, 183 businesses were liquidated in July this year compared to 147 in July last year. A young entrepreneur, Mintiro Ngwenyama, shared her story with camera operator Liabo and myself about the trauma she endured when her business took a turn for the worst and when she was forced to close shop. This is her story. For Mintiro Ngwenyama, being her own boss was a natural choice after completing school. Her parents wanted her to pursue law, but she would have none of it, opting for media studies instead. After landing her first job, she managed to save up enough capital to pursue her dream of being an entrepreneur.
I approached the franchise, Bimbo's franchise. They're like, okay, we especially have something for you. You are young, you can actually relate. It was at Wits University. And then I'm jumped in. I'm like, oh, this is a great opportunity that I've been waiting for. I always wanted to be in business. I went there during lunchtime. I'm like, I'm going to make money. I'm going to make a hell lot of money here. This I am buying.
And so a dream started turning into reality. A business plan, signatures on the dotted lines, it was a done deal.
First month I made 100,000. I came up with specials, ideas, everything like that. The franchises were actually, they were so impressed with me that, oh, okay, you just took over the store and now you made 100,000, which I still have. It's there on my records, on my papers.
A month later, the cracks began to show. It was clear that she had not done her homework.
Second month, okay. No, man, I'm looking into the figures. The figures, they don't make sense. The markup price of a burger is actually more than the selling price of the burger. It was a nightmare, and I started taking action. I asked them, is there a way we can relocate the business outside the premises? They said, no, the lease says you need to stay here for 5 years. How will I sustain staying here for 5 years if I can even barely make 10,000 to actually even go buy the stock? And where I was buying the stock, the prices were very, very high, and I was not allowed to outsource my own suppliers. So everything just started crashing down, and then before I know it, now I'm owing the franchise royalty fees. I'm not paying the royalty fees. I'm behind with the rent. Now it's 80,000 rent. The staff, they need the money. I remember one time my brother had to give me 15,000 to actually pay the staff. There's basically nothing. The store, it is dead.
Still in her 20s, Ngwenyama's first business venture had collapsed. She was bankrupt and facing a lawsuit. The journey to recovery was a long one, but she did not give up. She began picking up the pieces. Keys to the property, a reminder of the mistakes she made. Now, a weapon to new beginnings.
Every time I open them. Visibility studies is very, very, very important. Getting to know the business that you are getting into, it is also very important. Getting to know and understand your competitors and how it is very, very small things, they count. Small things can make and they can break your business.
Ngwenyama has since reset her entrepreneurial button. She now uses the lessons learned to help other entrepreneurs set up their businesses and maintain them better than she did. Mintiro Ngwenyama vows that her mistakes are part of her past, and she soldiers ahead into the future as a wiser businesswoman. Our guest today is Mark Paper. He's the Chief Operating Officer at Business Partners International. He'll help you to identify warning signs if your business is in distress and what steps you can take next. Mark, welcome to SME on Point. Thank you for your time. Mintiro's story is probably one that you have heard many and many times over. Tell us about your experience as business partners, because you are financiers and you probably see entrepreneurs such as herself who come back and say the business is running into trouble.
Correct. So I think what we try and do, and I think there's a couple of factors that she took the right decision. Working with a franchisor is the belief that it's a tried and tested model, so that there's a lot of learnings that she spoke of that you wouldn't necessarily have had to have done. So that, I think, is a positive. The negatives is, as she mentioned, knowing your business, knowing exactly what you're getting into. It is a danger to get into a business and not understand, for example, the cost of sales, and not understand who your creditors are, and not understand that you're hooked in for a 5-year term lease agreement, because the reason why you're hooked in is because you have to secure really credible premises to get the passing trade. So there's a whole lot of factors that you have to look into. You have to look and understand that. So what we try and do at Business Partners is we try and understand and identify those problems before the businesses are started. So that is to eliminate the level of failure, to eliminate the number of businesses that then find themselves in a situation like she was 3 months down the road.
Yeah, and you were kind enough to share those tips and warning signs with us. I'm hoping that we can see them on the business on the monitor there, so that you can quickly take us through them. First one is cash flow. Once you see that draining, you know that there's a problem, isn't there?
Yeah, but because I think with any business, cash flow is king. So at the moment you start suffering cash flow, you start suffering the ability to buy stock. You start suffering the ability to secure better deals, for example. You're late on your payments for your rent, or you're late on your payments and your telephone gets cut, etc. These are all the problems that businesses encounter. And at the end of the day, as long as they are able to generate cash flow, they are able to support all of this that is required to run a business. So absolutely, cash flow is critical.
Yeah, and in that answer, I see that you've answered number 2 as well, paying off bills. But when you don't see stock levels moving, you should also see it as a warning sign, shouldn't you?
Well, there's two aspects to stock. The one side is that you're going to see a diminishing of stock. So what is happening is a business is able to sell the product but doesn't have sufficient cash flow to replenish it. That's a big no-no. So you'll find that the business's stock levels decrease. The other problem is, however, is you might find that you've purchased a significant amount of stock and much of it is not saleable. So you start accumulating stock that you're not going to be able to sell, and that really depreciates in value significantly. So while your warehouse might be full, it's full of product that you're not going to be able to sell, and that's a danger as well, because it's not going to generate the cash flow.
Yeah, I would have thought that if I buy products, I would look for good quality products. What do you mean when you talk about another sign being poor quality of products?
Well, I think products, the demand or customers' tastes change constantly. So you might buy a product today that there's a high demand for it, but tomorrow it might have diminished. It might no longer be as high demand. So if you, for example, in the retail and you're in the fashion space, that's a very moving market. You might have purchased everything in the color of blue, but blue tomorrow is no longer the fashionable color. So the profile or the quality of the stock is one thing, but the actual demand for that stock also will diminish if there's no demand for it.
Okay, I'm hoping that we can have those signs of distress up again just before we get to the tips. Let's talk about declining relationship with the bank or the financier.
Yeah, this is a big one. So typically what happens is, and as your guest said a little bit earlier, a lot of the time, most of the time you need cash. And so therefore one of the first things to do is to secure yourself with a position of having access to funding. And that's a big challenge in any market. Now, when you've secured it, you have an obligation to service it. And the moment you can't service it, and obviously that's going to have pressure placed on you by your bank. Typically, you often see an overdraft facility is taken. That overdraft facility is very flexible during the good times. But over a time where it becomes more and more difficult to service that overdraft, you find it becomes hardcore. In other words, it has very little movement. It is remaining at the full extent of the facility itself. So the cash flow leverage that the client has is limited.
And I will link that up with particularly the lack of financial reports and slow paying customers, as well as bad customer feedback. If you could just bundle those up together and tell us what signs those are indicating to us.
Well, I think the first thing is a lack of financial reports is both inhibitive to be able to get further cash flow, because you can't approach a bank any longer. You don't have the financials. Having financials is critical to running a business, both in terms of understanding what is going on and in terms of being able to inform others as to what is going on. And you find that typically when businesses start failing, that ability to provide that accurate set of financials, or the non-willingness to provide the accurate set of financials, is an inhibitor to be able to access funding, get support from banks, etc. Slow-paying customers, obviously banks want to see, or financial institutions and yourself want to see cash moving through your business. Customers aren't paying, you're not going to see the cash, your cash flow is inhibited, and so your business is going to struggle.
It's going to struggle. I'd like to put up the 5 tips of what you can do to turn your business around very quickly. And if you could take us to review and assess your business model, as well as processes, as well as driving down your production costs. How's the easiest way, or what's the easiest way that we could quickly get around that?
So I think the first one is a constant. You should constantly be reviewing. It shouldn't be just at the time of difficult position. You should constantly be looking at how can we refine the operation, how can we create greater efficiency, how can we purchase stock at a lower cost, sell it at a higher margin. So there's a constant review, not just in times of crisis. Driving down your production costs is one of the big things that you can focus on. As an entrepreneur, you are able to look at a number of factors. So for example, you can look at simple things. Your insurance policy, are you paying a premium that is outside of the need? If you look at your bank charges, trying to manage that. If you look at your staff salaries, instead of really taking the tough decision of retrenching staff, what you can do is...
Maybe you could cut them down.
Well, not even cut them down. Let's all take a day once a month of unpaid leave. And so that way we can reduce the pay wage, but we at the same time manage the number of staff we keep on our board. There's a number of ways that you can really look at pushing down your pricing to make sure that your business can still be affordable.
Survive. And I'll quickly skim through in about a minute number 3, 4 and 5, if you could just sum that up for us.
Sure. Working capital cycle is all about what you buy being allowed to give as long a period to repay for it, and what you sell, trying to minimize the time that you give your customers to pay for it. So if you can get longer terms from your suppliers, but if you can get shorter terms from your customers, at the end of the day, the cash is going to be quicker in your bank account. And that's really what you are trying to achieve as a small business. By getting your suppliers to give you extended terms, effectively they start acting as your bank. They're not charging you interest, and so that's beneficial to you. By cutting down the time on the customers paying you, you're getting access to that cash. You can generate more business through having that cash. Careful planning, I think everything, whether that's household or small business, you need to run your business in terms of a budget efficiently.
And of course, don't stop to market yourself and constantly be innovative.
I think that don't stop to market is one of the key points, because often what happens is when people enter cash flow constraint, marketing is expensive, but marketing drives sales. Marketing creates customer awareness, and marketing can give you new customers. So the moment you stop, you enter that terrible cycle of I'm not marketing, I'm not making new customers aware of what I'm doing, and so therefore my sales are going to shrink, and so my business is going to shrink.
Mark Paper, you are the Chief Executive or the Chief Operating Officer at Business Partners Limited. Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed the insight that you have shared with us. And before we wrap, I'd like us to look at our entrepreneur code for this week. Remember that we are asking entrepreneurs to send us their own codes that they have conceptualized themselves that keep them going up to from week to week. And from this week, we have one that comes from Masego Mafoko at Q Store ZA, and she says success only occurs outside your comfort zone. So do one thing every day that pushes you to go against the current. That's Masego Mafoko at Q Store ZA.